Good morning, everyone. I am Jareen Samlal Singh, past president of Rotary Club of San Fernando twice, and I have been a Rotarian for the past 21 years. I'd like to introduce you to our speaker because I don't want to take up too much time. Who currently operates her own consultancy practice with a company, Herself Limited, providing HR management services in both public and private sector in Trinidad and Tobago. She has worked in the HR field for over 28 years and is certified with SHRM since 2001, the premier professional organization in the US for HR leaders. So, Ms. Walcott.
Thank you. Thank you. Très bien. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour, bonjour tout le monde. That's it for my French. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy that I can help you understand how to navigate in our very complex world if you're undertaking the very challenging but very exciting prospects of perhaps working in a virtual space. So today, I'm just going to introduce you to some thoughts that I think will be useful as you consider navigating this very, very, very wide and very dynamic opportunity that may soon become available for all of us. I know you may have some questions. Please share your questions in the chat. I know as well that we have our French counterparts. I'm hoping that I'm slow enough for the translation. So our local English persons, forgive me if you think that I'm slurring a little bit. It's just that I'm trying to accommodate everyone. So let's go. In terms of understanding what is happening in our world today, certainly the pandemic would have given us an opportunity to understand that, listen, our workspace can be as confined as to how we would like it to be, for most of us anyway. And that means that a lot of us found it possible to work from home, thankfully. And though there are some who are not able to do that, what the pandemic presented was an opportunity for employers to understand that they can reconfigure their businesses to accommodate virtual work and remote workers. So we have opened up the possibilities now for virtual work. And we now understand that even us here in the Caribbean, even for some of us with our local organizations, but certainly even as we consider being connected with an international organization, we now have an opportunity to be part of the remote work evolution. And this is because, you know it, we are boundaryless. Everything now has a remote connection. Everything can be virtual, even surgery. And we also understand that we're occupying a space that everyone else is occupying. So the entire global stage is available for anyone who wants to participate in this activity. And so we have to be ready for it. So I'm hoping that these tips helps us to become more ready. So what people are looking for if they're considering remote workers, certainly they want to know that the person that they're undertaking, the person that they will be working with, are self-managed and disciplined. So when I say self-managed, it means that you have to be able to undertake your responsibilities, even as nobody is standing over your shoulders, even as your supervisor may not be around. And that's simply because, of course, in a remote environment, you are pretty much working on your own. And so people need to trust that working on your own, even if you're part of a team, that you can do what you have said that you'd like to do and you've offered your services in doing, and that you would be accountable for those things. So a disciplined and a self-managed person assures employers that that is possible. We want you also to have very strong project management skills, because project management, not in its strictest form in terms of actually applying project management concepts, but the way you manage your work will be done through project management. So you manage tasks and activities related to various projects, and you manage them sometimes simultaneously. And the hope is that you have an understanding of how to schedule your time and how to achieve your responsibilities very much in a project management environment. Of course, we want to know that when you undertake a remote job, you're available to do that when the people need you to be available. So for some of us, there may be standard hours. For others, the hours may not be standard. You may be left alone to work out how you would want to do the work that is being asked of you. And so it may not be so much an issue of your working hours being fixed, but more an issue of being able to complete everything in the time that you said you would complete it, or in the deadline given. And that means that you also have to be adaptable, because it can also mean that you have to prepare for changes, prepare for things that might come up. So someone who is adaptable is going to be very useful, as well, of course, someone who is technology savvy. Not only do you know how to use a computer and of course use the tools, but you can get your work done and problem solve if things are coming up using the technology that is available to all of us. So some of us are very familiar with the normal suite of items and products that we all use. You may also have to extend your knowledge a little bit to what other countries, perhaps if you're considering an international organization that you want to partner with as a remote worker, you have to consider perhaps some of the things they may be using in Europe, some of the things they may be using in Asia. So you have to really expand your understanding and your skills beyond our shores, beyond the boundaries that you're confined in. Of course, it helps if you have these competencies, and while these are not the only competencies that are important for working and a productive, good worker, these become even more important for a virtual or a remote worker. And I don't have to tell you why self-motivated is big on the list. Self-motivated means that nobody has to tell me what to do. I understand what is required of me myself, and I am willing to do it. And I'm willing to do that under sometimes very difficult circumstances. It means I am internally driven because for me, it is important for me to accomplish what I've set out to do. The reason why, of course, communication is important is you have to be able to collaborate and work in a virtual space, so that you have to understand how your communications translate in a virtual space. So for some of us in our Caribbean areas, we have to go beyond our local parlance, our jargon, and understand that we have to break down our own cultural norms so that we communicate in a universally appealing way to whoever is on our team. All right, so some of the local slangs and dialect is not going to translate well in our virtual spaces. We talked about disciplined, of course, being responsive, meaning you answer and you participate and you deliver when you are required to. We've talked about being tech savvy, and you understand that you have to equip yourself to be technology ready and also to be learning all the time, because you may know one thing now, but guess what? We're downloading the latest update. We are on to the next story. We are, in our virtual environments, things become evolving and new and different very, very, very quickly. Independence, that speaks to the fact that a lot of the times you're going to be working on your own, even as you have virtual collaborations with your team members. You will be on your own for quite a bit of time in your remote environment. And of course, accountable, meaning you know what you are required to do and you hold yourself accountable, or you know that you have to deliver these items. There's some challenges in this space. There's a lot of competition because we're not competing with just people in our own Caribbean countries. We are competing with the world stage. So we're competing with people from Asia, from Europe, from North America, if we are applying to international opportunities. Certainly if you're applying for local opportunities, well, then it's not necessarily the same, but you also want to be ready because who knows, you want to move on and have the ability to move on to other things. All right, so there's a lot of competition if you're looking to become a remote worker. And when you do that, you can feel a little disconnected, particularly if you've worked in a physical space before. If you've never had the opportunity of working among persons, it may not be so acute for you. But when you are in a virtual environment, in an organization where most of the workers are virtual, it can feel a little isolating at times. You also have to understand that boundaries will become important. Sometimes the boundaries between work and play, are a little fuzzy, but what you want to do is make sure that when you are ready to work, you are in your workspace and environment defined for work. So in your home, you have to find an office or a space that can transport you into an environment that you're ready to work. And of course, ergonomics, having a chair that allows you to sit from, for a long time, although that's not necessarily the best thing, but certainly is a comfortable chair, making sure that your workspace and your dock station is equipped and also ergonomic to allow you to stand when necessary or to accomplish the work with ease and without causing any physical pain. That's something that's often underlooked. So what can you do to prepare yourself? It's important that you know what your gaps are relative to what I've just talked about and start addressing those gaps. A lot of us underestimate the opportunities that are available out there because we don't have a strong digital presence. If you want to make yourself available to a digital market or a digital employer, you have to build a personal brand. And guys, I know that some of us have a brand socially. You have to make sure that your social brand and your work brand are not in conflict with each other, meaning that you're not embarrassed by some of your social branding content. So that if you are in that space operating, please be sure that anything that you put out, even if it's a personal comment, even it's under your social branding, it's not going to conflict with any employer and your work brand. You also have to become worldly. What I mean is know what's happening around you, not just in your own country, know what's happening in the world, because that understanding will help equip you to collaborate with your team members and will help you to understand what the nuances are. So develop global competencies as well. Having another language, being able to parler français, being able to speak another language is going to also equip you, whether it is Spanish, which is easy for some of us here in the Caribbean, but certainly any other language will be useful. And then of course you have to make sure that you're set up online, your banking, all right, your ability to receive documentation. And so your internet bandwidth, I know we have limitations that we live with, but beyond that, if you're going to do this in a very serious way, find out how you can equip yourself in a real sense to become available and equipped and competent to do this virtually. So guys, I'm hoping that in the little time that we've had, that you have an understanding and an appreciation for how to be ready for the opportunities that are available to us virtually. I'm hoping that, if you still have any questions, that I can take those now and we can start answering some of those questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions?
So those of you who aren't so shy, please, yes, Eva, you've raised your hand, but you can feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question. Yes, Eva.
Okay, thank you. Quick question. So once we have all those things down, do you have anywhere that we can go to start trying to explore those remote work opportunities?
Sure. There are lots of online agencies and communities, recruitment communities are available. You know, if you just Google, some of the North American ones are going to come up. LinkedIn is also a very strong opportunity for you to link up with jobs that are being posted worldwide. You know, I don't want to date myself by recommending any of the recruitment agencies that I am familiar with, but there's so many that are available. Even some of our usual internet giants have gone into this space of using their platforms to advertise opportunities and make themselves available to recruiters and match them with others. Caribbean persons can be at a disadvantage, but I don't see why those disadvantages should keep us back. The reason why I'm saying that is because we have an opportunity to access the same things, either remotely or otherwise, as anyone else. And that's a great advantage that we have being able to operate in a remote environment. I think up to 10 years ago, if we wanted to have an international education, you certainly would have considered flying and being linked up to school physically, being in another school. I think the virtual world has opened up opportunities for us to be connected with others and learn from others in a remote space. So we have to be willing to engage those persons and make ourselves available for those opportunities. So Giselle, your question of whether Caribbean persons are at a disadvantage, we could be if we choose to do nothing, but thankfully, because of our remote environments, I think we can take advantage of some of the opportunities that are available. Ever, I hope I answered your question okay enough.
Yeah,
Giselle, okay. Any other questions?
I have one, Joanne. I know you, just going back to what you said about social branding and or you know, work on social, when you have social media, are you talking about your Instagram accounts, your Facebook accounts, your Twitter accounts?
Absolutely.
You know, I just wanted to know a little more on that.
Sure. So all of us, I'm sure, have some type of social media presence, and we would have initiated that presence mainly to be in touch with friends and mainly to be in touch with people that we care about and want to keep in touch with. But we also have to understand that if we're going to become a remote worker or take advantage of remote work opportunities, that content is also available to our recruiters and our future employers. So what I am suggesting is that our Facebook commentary, our Twitter commentary, even our LinkedIn commentary, some of us use LinkedIn, even though it's really intended to be a work network. Some of us make personal exchanges. And I'm saying be very, very conscious of the content that you're placing out there. Of course, you may have more very personalized and discreet and confidential platforms that you could use, like your WhatsApp communications are definitely not necessarily going to be more available in public spaces. But yes, those that are available to public spaces, you definitely want to manage it in a way that it doesn't embarrass you and it doesn't embarrass your future employers and it doesn't embarrass your parents, guys. Okay, so I'm hoping that is clear. There's another question here in the chat. What are some of the ways we can sharpen the skills needed to be a better remote work candidate? So I've shared some of the competencies. Depending on your gap, you know, listen, you guys, you can Google all kinds of stuff and ask yourself, how can I become more self-motivated? And you'll get some direct answers. Of course, there are free training that's available online. Some of them are better than others. So you may want to take a look at that. But of course, you can also access paid development opportunities. So we have the opportunity to groom ourselves and develop those competencies, and just do it on your own. Do it with the resources that you have. You can pay for some are available. Take advantage of those things. What you're doing now is a great start, being with a member of Rotaract. Yes, we have a hand here raised by Ariel. Ariel, what's your question?
Good morning, everyone. I have more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
Yes, I have found that since we have been working remotely for some time, that it was very important, well, at least for me, to find a space at home that I could work and be productive, because sitting down sometimes at the dining table for hours, it might not necessarily be in your best interest. And then to having a laptop or so that works well, having strong internet, all of that I found became very important within the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So that is it.
right. You're so right about that, Ariel. We cannot underestimate the importance of having the right tools, but also the right space and the environment that allows us to be productive. And I know that all of us were challenged over the last 2 years to really find a space that everybody can work in. And that's why, particularly in the US, a lot of people moved out from where they were in their smaller areas and went out for larger spaces, because one, they felt that it gave them the opportunity to be a little bit more flexible and in tune with their environment. But most importantly, it gave them more space so that they didn't feel as confined. And that's so important. You know that how important your environment may be in conditioning your productivity. Some of us are impacted more than others, but it's a truth that we are all going to be impacted by our environment. So create a workspace, even if it's an area on the dining room table, that is comfortable, that's ergonomic, and suited well for your productivity. But if you can eke out a little corner that no one will disturb you, of course, that's going to help. The broadband issues are real, and they hurt us all. There are limited things that we can do. I understand from my son that you can get access to Elon Musk's satellite technology at a high cost, but it's like super easy and super great. I'm not sure whether we can all afford those kinds of things, but I imagine that there are, considerations in between having to go to a provider and having to access your own satellite link. I believe that there's some options that we can also explore. I hope that helps. Okay, there's a comment here on the chat. If we have time. I have also heard that there are scams out there, persons pretending to be recruiters. Any advice on that? Absolutely. So go to the big guys, go to the reputable recruiters, and there are some more reputable than others. Monsters. This would be, of course, looking at international considerations, but we have our own local agencies like Caribbean Jobs that accesses all of the Caribbean-wide opportunities and are available to all of us here in the Caribbean. Certainly you want to be sure that you're accessing legitimate opportunities. And even if you want to take the opportunity to answer, investigate it a little bit, do your research and find out whether this organization exists before you even go to meet that person. And if they're not meeting you virtually, that kind of sends up a red flag. If they want to meet with you in a restaurant or some place, that looks a little more private, those are red flags that will tell you perhaps that's not necessarily the opportunity that you'd want to consider. So be very, very aware. Yes, there are scams out there. There are, unfortunately, persons taking advantage of others. So I'm glad you raised that as an issue. Security is definitely a consideration. Do we have time for more questions?
Yes, just about 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
Okay.
Any more questions? You can put it on the chat, or you can have raise your hands. I have another question. If our candidates are still thinking.
I see a question.
As far as a second language or so, French, Spanish, Could you say how it's going to impact on the particular, company you're working on and how important it is?
Yeah, well, it certainly is going to communicate to that employer that you're more internationally ready than someone who's not coming with language proficiency or some type of expanded language proficiency. So you're always going to have an advantage over quite a few persons if you're coming with more than one language under your belt. So it's always advantageous. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's French or Spanish or Chinese or whatever. It just speaks to the person's flexibility, their ability to learn and their willingness to consider expanding beyond their little silos, right? Because having undertaken another language, even sign language, tells something about you, tells that you're willing to explore, you're willing to learn and do more, all right? So yes. There's a question here related to payment mechanisms. It just went, but just to talk about that, you don't necessarily need a US account or an account in the US. You can access, and you could talk to your banker, your local banks, about how to do that. You do have tax considerations to consider. You should do your research. Those of us who are here in Trinidad and Tobago, anything that is considered income is taxable. So all of us would be required to, declare what we have to declare and so on. PayPal makes things easy and it's internationally recognized. Visa has systems. Most of the cards that we have access to, most of our online banking systems can accommodate international transfers, wire transfers, and you see that very easily on your systems, your online systems. So just talk with your banker and find out what would work in your own local environment. A reputable international recruitment site. I don't know why Monsters is coming up, because that was very, very popular years ago. But guys, I have to tell you, I can't recall at this point in time anyone immediately, but certainly, like I said, just do your homework and see whom you can connect with. That there are also specific sites that deal with very specific considerations. So, there's some that are more technical, there are others that are more engineering focused. So you want to be sure that you do your research and find out what's the site that works best for you. Like I said, here in the Caribbean, if you don't intend to go further than the Caribbean, you could consider a site like Caribbean Jobs.com to connect you with other Caribbean partners and organizations. And if you're really, really like me, would love to travel or would love to consider working with an international group, then you can go beyond that. I'm sorry that I couldn't share more, but there's another consideration here, fiverr.com. Okay, thanks for that. So I think that's it in terms of what we had time for.
Yes, Joanne, I just want to thank you on behalf of the RYLA team and for everything that you said this morning. It was quite informative. I know that we have learned a lot from it. I certainly did. So thank you so very much for your time. And I would hand over to our technical team now. Take care. Or before we go, is there any, I don't know if you want to leave your contact number in case any of the candidates, RYLA candidates, would like to contact you for any more.
Sure. Limited@gmail.com. I'll just leave it in the chat here.
Wonderful.
So you can reach me if you have any further questions. That's
yes,
not a
especially
problem.
for these shy ones and the time limit that we have. So thank you so very much. I'll hand over to technical team. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.